Give me liberty and give me Annette.
Welcome to Annette on Life, Liberty, and Happiness, a podcast where I talk about the Constitution, politics, history, culture, pretty much anything else I want to talk about.
Whatever you want to talk about.
Yes. And you can see I have a guest. You can find this podcast on AnnetteTalks.com, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher.
All the reputable podcast providers.
Yes, and the disreputable ones too.
Oh, yes.
I think you can find this on the black market.
Yeah, on the black web. Yes, the dark web.
Right. And YouTube, if you want to see what we look like, come visit us there. And please share this podcast on YouTube, Facebook, wherever. Oh, I'm on Facebook as well. Facebook.com/Annette Talks. And YouTube is Annette Talks. Annette just talks.
The Annette Talks channel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. All right. So today I have Mr. D.K. Williams.
I'm back. Thank you.
Here. And where can you be found? Because you have your own podcast.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the last episode we did. I do a podcast called The Law with D.K. Williams, and that is on all of those same reputable podcast providers, and I'm sure the disreputable ones as well. Mine is part of the SpeakeasyIdeas.com network. So if you look for Speakeasy Ideas, and you'll find my podcast, The Law with D.K. Williams. And on Twitter, always tweet out things that are going on in the world of legal
he tweets.
Stuff. Yeah, I'll tweet about that. Things going on in the Supreme Court, and that's at The Law DKW on Twitter. So check that out, and Facebook.com/The Law with D.K. Williams. And we're going to talk about the last episode.
Cool. For some reason, I want to give you rabbit ears.
Okay. Can you reach?
I just smacked my guest on my podcast. That's a first.
Short joke, sorry.
All right. So this whole coronavirus thing, I just have to get that out of the way. Like, it's making me a little bit bonkers in that, like, I keep swinging back and forth between anxiety about the fact that my kids are going to be home for
right. Because they've canceled your Douglas County schools for 2 weeks.
Well, they're taking an extra week off for spring break, but they're hinting that they may just leave them at home, which is a nightmare to me, and make them take school online.
Right.
So I just picture us four ladies
around this table.
Yeah, oh no, I will be in another room. But,
and DPS, where my daughter goes, we're going to be out for 3 weeks already. They've already said 3 weeks because their spring break didn't start after we had 2 more weeks of school scheduled. Then spring break, they just said we're starting now.
But are they going to have her do work? Or the kids do work?
Not during those 2 weeks. No, it's an extended spring break.
Wow.
Nope,
well, our kids have to do work during the extra week.
Got it.
So, but I'm just praying, literally praying every day, let them go back after 2 weeks. Like, I can't do this. So that produces anxiety. And whenever my anxiety level comes up, my jokes just keep coming, popping. So on Facebook, I've been tearing the thing up. So if you like to follow Facebook, go to my Facebook page. I'm Annette Mashler-Bybee on there, and you can see that the jokes just keep coming. People get mad at me, and I don't care. I'm just going to keep doing it.
Yeah, if they don't get a joke, then they can move on.
Yeah. I've already unfriended, actually, a few. I'm like, I can't. This is too stressful a time to be.
Nobody needs that negativity in their lives.
And I'm not going to have it.
Avoid negativity.
Yes. All right.
Online.
So we got that out of the way.
Yes.
And we are going to be talking about a case that you talked about on your most recent episode, which was 73.
Yep, it was episode 73.
And it was about civil asset forfeiture.
Yes, and the reason I did it, because that's always been an issue that I think has been, its existence is outrageous. And the case came down from the Wyoming State Supreme Court on March 3rd, so just 2 weeks ago now almost, dealing with an asset forfeiture case in Wyoming. And the basic facts of it are that Robert Miller, just a guy, right? He was driving from California, stopped in Nevada, and was driving through Wyoming on his way to Illinois, which is where he lived. Got pulled over for speeding. State trooper pulled him over. And one of the problems, and we have talked about this before, and I mentioned this on the podcast, don't ever consent to a search. I'll just leave it at that. Mr. Miller did. He said, oh, sure, check out the car. And so the state trooper found...
Oh, wait, before you get there.
Yeah.
The part that I thought was interesting, because I just listened to this episode yesterday,
right.
was when the state trooper had him come and sit in the cruiser.
Right, I had never heard of that really before. So when the state trooper is going to write him a ticket, he tells Mr. Miller he can come sit in the passenger side of the trooper's car.
Which is so
they
weird to me.
talk,
I would
right.
not. I would not be.
Yeah.
I would not want to. I would be like, I'll just stand right here.
Yeah,
please.
or wait in my car, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, So, and he chatted him up, and don't ever say anything other than how's the weather or how about the Yankees in that situation, and certainly don't say, oh yeah, sure, check my car out.
No, never consent.
Right.
Never.
So he does consent. Mr. Miller consents, so that's not an issue. He waived his constitutional rights. He just crumpled them up and threw them away.
Did we mention that you're a lawyer?
Oh yeah, I'm a lawyer.
We're both lawyers, but he actually follows cases. So anyway, just keep going.
All right.
He threw away his.
Yeah, he just threw them away, which is un-American. Don't let anybody ever tell you to not exercise your rights. That's why this country was formed.
I liked what you said about how if you don't exercise them, it's like a muscle. And the atrophy.
Right, the atrophy, exactly.
Yeah, it's like we get used to. Once you get used to, it's okay for the government
I've got nothing
to do
to
this.
hide. Go ahead and look. That's un-American. That is un-American.
And you start thinking that it's okay.
Right.
And it's not.
Right.
It's not okay.
And then the law enforcement, or the state in general and its agents will start to pressure you to waive those rights. And that's where the muscle comes in. If you don't stand up to that, then it does atrophy and it's no longer, you can't use it anymore. It just goes away. So exercise it, especially when you have nothing to hide.
People will take as much power from you as they can.
Exactly, yeah. So, if you're in that situation, the magic words are, am I free to go, officer?
Yes.
Or am I under arrest?
Always.
Yeah.
Always.
Yep.
If they haven't Mirandized you, you're pretty much free to go, isn't it? I mean, isn't
Well,
that...
you need to ask. You can't just walk away from them.
But I mean, if they haven't Mirandized you, at that point, it's time to say,
right.
Am I
right.
free
You
to
can
go?
say, am I free to go, officer? I know it's been lovely chatting with you. Am I free to go? Be polite about it. And at that point, if he says you're not free to go, then you're under arrest. And then other things kick in, like the Miranda.
So if I'm arrested, I can call you?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Or if you've got any other... I don't really do exciting things anymore. Like I represented people that had been convicted of murder back in North Carolina and did some of their death row appeals. Actually got to argue before the North Carolina Supreme Court and won a case. It was on a procedural issue, but we won. And that's still good law, so that was cool. Represented people in criminal cases in federal court, drug conspiracies, that type of thing.
But so if we're in the Denver area, though, and if we're...
Yeah, in Colorado. Yeah, I'm only licensed in Colorado now.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I keep getting off topic.
Hit me up on Twitter there at @TheLawDKW if you have any questions. I might be able to point you in the right direction anyway. So the trooper is looking through the car, and in the back, in the trunk, he pulls the lining, I guess, or like the carpet that is easy to move, I assume. Yeah, not bad. And he moves it, and he finds a manila envelope. In that manila envelope is cash. He eventually finds, I can't remember the total number, 7 of them or whatever, and the total amount of cash is $470,000.
Yeah, I carried that much cash in my car.
Hey,
you never know.
you know what? And I get it. People go, well, he must have been up to something. You know what? Maybe, but maybe not.
Right.
It's not our business.
Yeah.
Unless we can tie it directly into some criminal activity. And in this case, they could not. They eventually investigated it. They had some information from a Texas and a California, some law enforcement that said 9 years ago he had a connection to some LSD conspiracy.
Right.
And people go, oh, well, there you go. He was up to no. That really means nothing. For one thing, it was 9 years ago. And when you have a connection to something, whatever your cousin has ever done in his life, you have a connection to that. Right. That's a connection because that's your cousin, right? Or whatever. Guy you went to high school with is up to something. Well, you have a connection to that. It means absolutely nothing. You need a whole lot more than some connection.
But, you know what? I have a question.
Yes.
Because I listened to this and I know that what's coming is that they're going to take the money. Don't they have to have probable cause to take money, just like they would have to have probable cause to arrest you?
They don't. There's all these different standards. They have to be able to say some reason that they think it might be involved, either to facilitate an illegal transaction or an illegal activity, or it's the result of like profit from an illegal activity.
All right.
Like it's drug money. So they have to be able to. They have to assert that. But that's all they have to do is assert it.
Yeah.
Because civil asset forfeiture, that first word is civil. This is not criminal.
Right.
And there's a long history behind how this has, how it started and how it has evolved into this.
You have to have more evidence if you're going to arrest a person than you do if you're going to take their
To seize
stuff.
their assets.
Right.
Exactly. And then once they seize it, it becomes the burden on the person who claims it to show that it's legit. And that can be impossible to do. I mean, it's almost like proving a negative. You have to prove it's not illegal, and that's
So at
sometimes
that point,
impossible.
all you have is a guy with a lot of money in his
Right.
car who had some connection 9 years ago to
Right.
somebody, some drug dealer.
Well, and the state trooper didn't know that at the time.
He just
they find
saw
that
money.
out. They found that out later.
Oh, what I thought was to me, the insult, adding
Oh,
insult to
yeah.
injury was the $40.
Yeah, so there's $470,000 in manila envelopes hidden in the back of his car, in his trunk. So they take that, but then he also had $40 on his person. So either in his pocket or in his wallet. They took that.
Yeah,
So
To me,
That's
I'd have
horrible.
to say, losing the 470 grand made me mad, but that $40
Yeah.
to me
That's just
was
gas
like,
money.
That was always, because to me that's like, we're not going to leave you with anything.
right, exactly.
And how could that $40 be related to the 470?
Yeah.
Oh, that would make me mad.
Yeah, and that's why the title of the case, in these in rem actions, in rem is Latin for the thing or regarding a thing, in this case cash.
As opposed to in personam.
Right. So it's either involving a person, which is your basic criminal actions involving an individual, and in rem is a thing. So
I hope you're not
they're
pointing to me
arguing
when you're
about
saying
cash.
this.
Us.
I haven't done anything, I swear.
So they took his money and they held on to it, and he got pulled over in November of 2013. The Supreme Court of Wyoming just came out to this decision this month in March of 2020. They've held on to that cash for 7 years.
I know, and the
Almost
other
7
thing I
years.
was thinking is how much interest could have been earned.
Right,
from
and he
that.
doesn't get that as far as I know. I don't think
That's
he gets that.
ridiculous. He should get the interest on that.
Yeah, yes,
That's a
yes,
lot.
he should.
I mean,
So they take the money, they think, oh man, we got somebody involved with drugs, and they investigate it. The Wyoming Attorney General's office, state troopers, they get the Drug Enforcement Agency involved, the DEA gets involved, and they can't come up with anything to charge him with. All they've got is the cash, nothing else. They can't charge him. And after they decide they're not going to charge him, then they wait another couple of months. And they begin the process of filing the paperwork you have to file to keep the property.
see, to me, this is the worst part.
Yeah.
Other than the $40, which was very insulting, that was a slap
Right,
across the face.
right.
They don't charge him with anything. They don't have enough evidence to charge him with anything.
Correct.
But they're going to keep
Keep the money anyway. That I mean,
That's the most
how is this
absurd thing.
possible in the United States of America?
know.
And it happens every day. And several years ago, there was a bill pending before the Colorado State Legislature to basically say you can't take anybody's property unless there's a criminal conviction. What a crazy idea that is,
Yeah.
right? Well, the front row of that hearing in the legislative committee about that bill was filled with law enforcement from all over the state in their uniforms there to testify about how important it was for them to be able to steal stuff from them.
Oh.
We need that. We need it. Oh, and then somebody said, well, it's a big tool in stopping human trafficking. And so when you say that, that's even more, that's like magic words to some
Right.
people. Oh, well.
Well, we all hate human trafficking, but that's
so therefore,
so what?
if we vote against you being able to steal stuff without any legal, criminal, not even a charge, if we let you steal it, that means we don't like human trafficking. And that's the level of analysis you get. It happens with kids too. Oh, this is for the kids. Oh, well, okay, then I guess we
Alright.
need to raise taxes, otherwise I don't like
Or
kids.
if we could save one life.
Yeah, exactly, right. So, and it was interesting, because this isn't really a
Wait,
partisan issue.
did the law here pass?
No, it did not. In that particular committee hearing, that committee killed it. And what is interesting is that this isn't really a partisan issue.
Right.
You've got Democrats and Republicans that are in favor of it and opposed to it. Libertarians, of course, oppose
Right.
governments taking stuff from you without any process or criminal charges. And it was one Democrat and one Republican on this committee that ended up killing it. So either one of them had voted the other way. It could have proceeded. It might have died anyway, but it died there because of that.
That's just
Because of the magic words,
Amazing.
human trafficking. So Mr. Miller says, hey, you guys can't take this money because it's not because you didn't charge me with anything, because that's been allowed, which is insane.
Yeah.
That should not be allowed, and I hope eventually it is overturned, probably by legislatures. Some state legislatures have done it. They said you cannot take the property unless there is a criminal conviction.
that
Okay,
has to
I
be
get it.
tied to that property.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. It has to be found beyond a reasonable doubt that that property was used in the commission of the crime or was profits from it, basically.
Right.
And the reason Mr. Miller got his property back was he argued before the state trial court that they waited too long to file the paperwork because the Wyoming state statute said that the government had to file the forfeiture papers promptly.
Right,
which is
that's ridiculous.
That just is asking for litigation, right?
Yeah, because nobody knows what promptly means.
Right. It's arguable.
I mean, around the house, when I want the girl to do something promptly, that means immediately.
That means right now, right? And the state of Wyoming Attorney General said, no, we have a year because there's another statute that applies. They lost on that. But the trial judge, as they are wont to do, favored the government in this and dismissed Mr. Miller's motion to get his money back. So he ends up all the way to the Wyoming Supreme Court. They ruled the other way. They say, first of all, promptly is the one that applies. And then they did this whole analysis about, was this prompt in this situation? The 1 year thing doesn't matter. It's prompt, because that's what the statute says right there. It says promptly. And they analyze some U.S. Supreme Court cases that are on point, and they come to the conclusion that it was not prompt. So for that reason, he got his money back. Not because it's unconstitutional to steal it, but because they took too long to file their paperwork, which to me is amazing.
Well, and didn't you say as well that the prosecution or the
Wyoming State Legislature
has the power or the ability to appeal this to the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
And so they could hold the money until then,
right,
even though the Supreme Court's not likely to take it.
Right. Yeah. If the state appeals it to the U.S. Supreme Court, they're going to hold on to the money pending that process.
So this guy could be waiting around.
Yeah, even longer. Right. Now the U.S. Supreme Court gets asked to hear, I don't know what the number is, but a lot, thousands probably, of cases every year. And they have almost complete discretion, except for a few things involving disputes between states. They get complete discretion of what they want to hear.
Right.
And they take like 1% or less of the cases that people apply for. And so the odds are the U.S. Supreme Court wouldn't hear this. I mean, they could, but the odds are they wouldn't. And once they dismissed it, eventually denied the request to hear the case. Then at some point, Mr. Miller would have to get his money back. And I don't know if they're going to appeal or not. That time hasn't elapsed yet. But follow the law, and I will let you know what happens.
I can't imagine them appealing it because the Supreme Court is definitely going to affirm the state Supreme. And plus it's not on their due process was the constitutional issue, right? But they needed to go to the Supreme on whether or not civil asset forfeiture is a violation of the Fourth Amendment?
Fifth also. They dealt with Fifth, which is excessive fines. Right. They dealt with it there, and they said that does apply to the states. But that is an excellent point, though, because you're right. The statute, the Wyoming statute, if that was all that was involved,
it wouldn't go.
There's no basis to appeal it to the United States Supreme Court, because Wyoming gets to decide what the Wyoming statutes say.
Right.
But it involved whether or not the holding on to the money for so long violated his due process rights, which are applied to the states through the 14th Amendment. So, and the Wyoming Supreme Court used U.S. Supreme Court cases to analyze what had happened to Mr. Miller. So there, in that regard, there is a federal constitutional issue of due process. So that would be the basis for any further appeal by the state. But you're right. If it's just a Wyoming issue, U.S. Supreme Court doesn't have any grounds to hear it.
Right. Shouldn't they at least give him his $40 back?
I know.
I just figured them saying, well, what other money do you have? And him reaching into his wallet, pulling out a couple of 20s and then taking it. I'm like,
we're taking that
what?
Too. I know.
That's just, that feels like you're in a police state.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's like a dystopian novel, but it's real. It's true.
It's hard to believe. So never ever. So the lessons learned here are never consent to a search.
Correct.
And that we need new legislation. Right.
Write your Congress people, well, that's federal, or your state representatives, state senators, and say, hey, what's up with civil asset forfeiture? And that's what they call it, and as I refer to it in the podcast, civil asset forfeiture is newspeak, which is what Orwell came up with in 1984. It's the language the government uses, right? It's to hide what things really are. So civil asset forfeiture is newspeak for highway robbery by the state. They're just taking your money. They don't have to charge you with anything. And then it's your burden to get it back. And what they did here, one of the other things they did, in this case, the state of Wyoming did, is several months into it, they offered the guy, Mr. Miller's attorney, a settlement deal. And they say, all right, tell you what, we'll resolve all of this. we'll give you 10% of it back. And you waive any right to the rest of it. How's that? We are so,
Such a deal.
what a deal. You can walk away right now, 10% of it back. And my mind is just blown that there are people that work for the government that do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I could obviously never work for the government.
I was thinking you would have a hard time being a cop.
Yeah. Oh, no, I would be a great cop, but they'd probably fire me because I would obey the Constitution.
Yeah.
No, they're good cops. I don't.
There are.
I'm being facetious. There are very, very good
But
cops.
in this case, it literally was highway robbery.
Yes, he was on the highway.
He was on the
right. Absolutely.
Yeah, you'd expect this kind of thing from someone with a gun, with a bandana over his face.
Right.
Yeah, not from the state. So, all right. So we want to never consent to a search.
Right.
And if you ever hear civil asset forfeiture coming up in your state legislature, make sure that you are heard, because it really is. I mean, it's robbery.
Right.
It's even worse than taxes.
Right. Yeah, it definitely is. And I think the point to make is that when you're against civil asset forfeiture, let there be a criminal forfeiture if someone has been convicted of a crime. Okay, you've been convicted. You had a jury. You had all of your constitutional rights to confront your witnesses, to be faced with the charges. All of those things come into play. And if you lose, then they can put you in jail. All right, they can take property that they have proven beyond a reasonable doubt was used or is profit from your criminal activity. Okay. Do it that way.
Right. For
but
instance,
do it
if they
with
had
a criminal conviction.
If they had actually found a current tie and evidence that this money was from a drug deal
right, or whatever, right.
then that would have been a different story.
If he had been convicted of it.
Yeah.
Right. And they would be able to hold the money if they charge him with something. And then pending the resolution of that criminal charge, they could hold on to it,
right.
But they would never be allowed to keep it unless they got a conviction and tied the money into that conviction. But here, after they already said, we can't charge this guy, we looked, we don't have enough to charge him with anything, then they filed the motion to keep the money anyway.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
This is so amazing.
Yeah.
All right, and what was the name of that case again?
Miller versus Wyoming. Came out March 3rd, I believe. It was early March of this year, 2020.
All right, and you did a whole episode 73 on the law with D.K.
Williams. The law with D.K. Williams on SpeakeasyIdeas.com. Yeah, if you go to SpeakeasyIdeas.com/thelaw, boom, you got them all.
And obviously you have 72 other
I do.
episodes.
Yes, I do. Yeah. I start off with like some of the famous historical ones. McCulloch versus Maryland, Marbury versus Madison, and then Plessy v. Ferguson. So a lot of the famous ones that are important historically. And then I also will do things that, like this one, that are current, that are in the news now, that I think it's important for people to be aware of.
Right.
And one of my things that I really harp on is just to read the cases.
Mm-hmm.
If you really want to know, read the cases. I mean, most people aren't going to do that. I get it. But what I use all the time is somebody, usually a congressperson, a United States congressperson, comes out and says something, condemns, let's say, a federal district court case, condemns it, and the reason they're condemning it makes it obvious they haven't read the case.
Right.
All they know is the result, and they're pretending like it's horrible, but that whatever their complaint is explained in like 2 paragraphs, and they haven't read it.
Yeah.
So, and then what happens is people listen to that, they say, oh, that person must know what they're talking about, and then so a person watching TV or listening to the radio says, well, that's a horrible idea. That was just horrible what the courts did. They're basing their opinion on what somebody else said who didn't read the opinion either.
Right.
So it becomes like the world's worst game of phone tag, right? Phone.
Right, telephone.
Telephone, yeah, right. Yeah, you hear it wrong, you think it's true, now you've got something that's just absolutely wrong, which if you took 20 minutes to read, to skim it, you would know that it's wrong.
Right, and that's why you do a deep dive into it and actually analyze it.
Yeah, and every one of my podcasts, I have a link to the actual case in the show notes.
Awesome.
So make it easy, boom, if you want to go look at it.
That reminds me, I keep getting on Facebook feed, Jason Crow, one of our local Democrat congressmen. Is he a senator? He's
a member of the U.S. House of Representatives.
I keep seeing these little ads, and I don't know why.
Which is probably where we are right now, I'm guessing.
Yes, because I've seen yard signs here.
Right.
Little ad saying, should we have a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United? Right. And I keep thinking, once again, they don't know what it's about.
That was episode 2.
Yeah, so if you want to know what Citizens United is really about, go listen to his episode 2.
The facts of that are that Hillary Clinton didn't want a group to show let me back up. She didn't want to show up, but she wasn't the party. the Federal Elections Commission said that Citizens United, which is just a group of people, it's like a political group. There's a million of them, right? This is an anti-Hillary group. They're still around, but at the time they were major anti-Hillary because they thought Hillary was going to beat Obama in the Democratic primary, the first one. And so they put out this documentary, which is clearly biased against Hillary. But that's what people do, right? It's up to us to discern what's true and what's not. Mm-hmm. And the Federal Election Commission said, no, you cannot show this documentary because it's too close to the next election. And they shut it down. And Citizens United said, what? Are you familiar with the First Amendment? All right. And the U.S. Supreme Court eventually got it and said, the government cannot censor a documentary. That's what it says.
Right.
That is what it says. And you hear these people...
It has nothing to do with we can't all donate to local causes.
Yeah.
So anyway, I thought of you when I saw that. I'm like,
good.
So check that out. And again, if you haven't listened to any of my other episodes, I did a really good one on Medicare for All and how much it sucks and why we should avoid it in this country. I go through all the facts and everything, and I have lots of other great episodes, so go back and find them. Yeah, see, he even says so. AnnetteTalks.com, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, etc. So listen to me there, find me on YouTube, like, subscribe, share. If you have any other ideas you want to hear about, you'll be on again, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, DK, I'll keep dragging him out here and making him talk about cases. So find, like, subscribe, etc. And thank you for listening to and watching Annette on Life, Liberty, and Happiness. And thank you, DK.
Thank you for having me.